This, at least, is their view of the common accidents of life. Moreover, they hold their deities to be quite regardless of motives. With them it is the thing done which is everything, and the motive goes for nothing. Thus they hold it strictly forbidden for a man to go without common air in his lungs for more than a very few minutes, and if by any chance he gets into the water, the air god is very angry, and will not suffer it, no matter whether the man got into the water by accident or on purpose, whether through the attempt to save a child or through presumptuous contempt of the air god. The air god will kill him, unless he keeps his head high enough out of the water, and thus gives the air god his due. This with regard to the deities who manage physical affairs. Over and above these they personify hope, fear, love, and so forth, giving them temples and priests, and carving likenesses of them in stone, which they verily believe to be faithful representations of living beings, who are only not human in being more than human. If anyone denies the objective existence of these divinities, and says that there is really no such being as a beautiful woman called Justice, with her eyes blinded and a pair of scales, positively living and moving in a remote and ethereal region, but that Justice is only the personified expression of certain modes of human thought and action, they say that he denies the existence of Justice in denying her personality, and that he is a wanton disturber of men's religious convictions. They detest nothing so much as any attempt to lead them to higher spiritual conceptions of the deities whom they profess to worship. Arowhena and I had a pitched battle on this point, and should have had many more but for my prudence in allowing her to get the better of me. I am sure that in her heart she was suspicious of her own position, for she returned more than once to the subject. "Can you not see," I had exclaimed, "that the fact of Justice being admirable will not be affected by the absence of a belief in her being also a living agent? Can you really think that men will be one whit less hopeful because they no longer believe that hope is an actual person?" She shook her head, and said that with men's belief in the personality, all incentive to the reverence of the thing itself, as justice or hope, would cease. Men from that hour would never be either just or hopeful again. I could not move her, nor indeed did I seriously wish to do so. She deferred to me in most things, but she never shrank from maintaining her opinions if they were put in question, nor does she to this day abate one jot of her belief in the religion of her childhood, though in compliance with my repeated entreaties she has allowed herself to be baptized into the English Church. She has, however, made a gloss upon her original faith to the effect that her baby and I are the only human beings exempt from the vengeance of the deities for not believing in their personality. She is quite clear that we are exempted. She should never have so strong a conviction of it otherwise. How it has come about she does not know, neither does she wish to know. There are things which it is better not to know, and this is one of them. But when I tell her that I believe in her deities as much as she does, and that it is a difference about words, not things, she becomes silent with a slight emphasis. I own that she very nearly conquered me once, for she asked me what I should think if she were to tell me that my God, whose nature and attributes I had been explaining to her, was but the expression for man's highest conception of goodness, wisdom, and power, that in order to generate a more vivid conception of so great and glorious a thought, man had personified it and called it by name, that it was an unworthy conception of the deity to hold him personal, inasmuch as escape from human contingencies became thus impossible, that the real thing men should worship was the divine, whereinsoever they could find it, that God was but man's way of expressing his sense of the divine, that as justice, hope, wisdom, etc., were all parts of goodness, so God was the expression which embraced all goodness and all good power, that people would no more cease to love God on ceasing to believe in his objective personality, than they had ceased to love justice on discovering that she was not really personal. Nay, that they would never truly love him till they saw him thus. She said all this in her artless way, and with none of the coherence with which I have here written it. Her face kindled, and she felt sure that she had convinced me that I was wrong, and that justice was a living person. Indeed, I did wince a little, but I recovered myself immediately, and pointed out to her that we had books whose genuineness was beyond all possibility of doubt, as they were certainly none of them less than 1800 years old; that in these there were the most authentic accounts of men who had been spoken to by the Deity himself, and of one prophet who had been allowed to see the back parts of God through the hand that was laid over his face. This was conclusive, and I spoke with such solemnity that she was a little frightened, and only answered that they too had their books, in which their ancestors had seen the gods, on which I saw that further argument was not at all likely to convince her, and fearing that she might tell her mother what I had been saying, and that I might lose the hold upon her affections which I was beginning to feel pretty sure that I was obtaining, I began to let her have her own way, and to convince me. Neither till after we were safely married did I show the cloven hoof again. Nevertheless, her remarks have haunted me, and I have since met with many very godly people who have had a great knowledge of divinity, but no sense of the divine. And again, I have seen a radiance upon the face of those who were worshipping the divine either in art or nature, in picture or statue, in field or cloud or sea, in man, woman, or child, which I have never seen kindled by any talking about the nature and attributes of God. Mention but the word divinity, and our sense of the divine is clouded. End of chapter 16.